OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 321. The Bounty Hunters. Calculated velocity of victory reporting in. Velocity says on her ship. You're early with your report this time. More and more information is coming out about the subject copy situation. I have information that subject copy's sheer skill in bioengineering is beyond anything we expected. They have created natural physical counters to a powerful blister agent in their standard creations and modified the chemical makeup of a slow-based entity to produce a brutal acid when killed within the blister agent. Whether heat is required to produce that effect or not is currently unknown, but the point stands. We have severely underestimated the potential threat and the potential knowledge that could be of use to us. Can you reconfirm that subject copy is in fact a copy of an individual within Undaunted employ? Yes, but only to the same level of certainty as the previous confirmations. However, I do have further information on him. Apparently his psychological status is fragile and is in counseling due to the sheer moral impact of what his clone has been up to. But he himself is talented on that level. I've requested information from the Undaunted, but the lack of a solid confirmation of my status to them is slowing things down. They're moving forward with my request as Harold's wife as a starting point, and they have acknowledged my military training. But the fact that there is no official or even unofficial contact between the Vishanian and the Undaunted. As such, I'm part of an unknown military polity and a potentially hostile one at that. They've categorized us as potential hostiles. We have attacked an ally of theirs. The only reason it's not a full hostile designation is that we did so indirectly. Velocity explains. Commander, we're running out of time here. We need some kind of answer, even one made to buy time sooner rather than later. We are aware, her commander says. So what do I tell them? These humans leave a wake light years wide on a slow day. What do we do? Velocity asks. Tell them that we have several ambassadors on the way to the neutral setting of Centris, and will be making formal contact soon. Furthermore, that our intent at this time is to open formal communications with the Apuk Empire through them so we can compensate for damages done and set up a formal border between us and them, her commander says, and Velocity nods. Interestingly, I am informed that there are numerous extremely early detection methods for a child to be scanned genetically. Do we know what species the child within you is going to be? It is too soon for that. We need some more time, but we can confirm that I am indeed pregnant. Velocity. There have been no natural-born Vishanian. We do not know what species the child will emerge as, or if the genetic structure of a Vishanian can even survive the process. There is a non-zero chance your child will be effectively a clone of his father or hers. This is unknown territory. Are you regretting the orders you gave me? Velocity asks. No. Being aware that we can, in fact, bear young is a blessing in its own right. However, yourself and several other brave volunteers will be the prototyping for whether or not we can actually bear young. I see, Velocity says with a hand on her stomach. It's too early for her own biology to tell her what's going on beyond a few tweaks of appetite. But she knows they're there, and she's afraid. The Vishanian are not a natural people, and there have been other unnatural peoples. She had looked into it. Many times, they just fail, unable to pass their genes. Her womb is fully functional, so that's better than most. But there is still a chance, a very grim chance, of failure. Stay strong, whether it is life or death. That child is what tipped the vote and spurred us to move. We do what we do for the sake of those yet to come, but there is no way to hide yours. Then my orders to seduce him. I suspect the general was seeking to force the issues. Should you require it, then we will send backup to your location and extract you, no matter where in the galaxy you are. I do not think I need it for safety reasons, but I would backup would be nice. I will speak with Captain Rangi first, however. This is his ship, and after the events surrounding the Vinoc Nebula and its awakening, I am hesitant to cross such a man. His facial tattoos are very much war paint, and he has earned them. Yes, the battle reports are quite interesting. To move from a simple transport to a roving menace, to his enemies, and with a solid plan to outright wage war against a vastly superior force, always shifting and readjusting to enemy actions. It is a fascinating read. I see. One last question, Commander, Velocity asks. Of course. What do we do if we succeed? Pardon? What happens if my child is a fully developed, fully healthy, and fully viable Vishanyan? Many others will want to be mothers. In fact, I would argue everyone would want the chance. Our natural stealth is impressive, but if our species starts expanding at an exponential rate, then we will need more room, more plans, and more. Everything to properly train, house, and arm our people. I do not know. I suspect one day we may have a civilian population, but not for a time. Although I am curious as to where unending reign of retribution is. She's currently in the room with recently raised Lord of the Leblanc Empire, Slytherin Hardytail Schmidt. Ah, yes, the one with nearly a half-dozen reported nicknames. Do you know why they're doing that? A ship tradition, apparently. All the men go by field nicknames. With the only one that isn't, has it generally agreed that the rest of the crew find his name funny enough to not need one. He's taken it in good humor from my understanding. Well then, I will be looking forward to her next report then. I trust you will pass the good news to her. Yes, but first I will be seeing Captain Rangi about having a proper squad here with us. Of course. Dismissed, Captain. Rain sighs in her own mind as the squad keeps failing to notice her while she observes the young lord. He's a handsome one, and she's of the opinion the clear scars coupled with the sheer enthusiasm he's feeling is just making him more attractive. She watches as he brings his destroyer drone further down the tunnel and gives off an obvious and incredibly detailed scan of the area. It was clear that when this monster was brought out, all forms of subtlety were left out entirely. He starts whistling a low and ominous theme as he has the monstrous thing slowly go down the connecting tunnel and raises up the monstrosity into the next chamber. There is a light up of powerful lasers, and he manages to switch the shields to the proper configuration in time to avoid damage to the drone. Then he has it jolt to the side to avoid a plasma barrage while its own plasma cannons begin shooting down the lasers in rapid succession. There is a resemblance to how the drone dealt with the security of the other chamber in that it releases the smaller drones once it has an opening, but in this case it is firing back, obviously, and the small drones are prioritizing the lasers. Then there is a sudden crack as a railgun that was holding back and hidden unveils itself by firing a supersonic round right into the torso of the drone. The chest plate's outermost layer detonates and takes the entirety of the impact, without allowing further damage to hit the rest of the drone. It doesn't even shake. Damn, I can't take too many of those. How many? Rain asks, and then laughs as Slytherin yelps. 7 weapons are pointed her way, and she fades in. Hello, I'm a friend. I've just been watching, but am related to a Cloaken, so I kind of blend in. After all, if Harold can get away with the sheer amount of unending nonsense, then why not her? Good reaction time, though. How did you get in? The foot is good for more than just kicking things, she says before leaning over cheekily. You can walk with them, too. A plasma rifle is pressed against the side of her head. What are your plans? Oh, well, I'm legally off duty, so I'm just hanging around friendlies. But if you're not friendly, then I can leave. The door's right there after all. She explains, gesturing to the door. Another blast of the railgun brings Slither's attention back to his drone, and he turns to slag it and start dodging again. Keep an eye on her, but unless she pulls a weapon, she's welcome. If she wanted to do something, she'd have done it, Slytherin states. He's right. I have already done it, Rain says, and the gun is pressed harder. What? I'm not allowed to look at handsome young men? Is he taken? No one else allowed into... And I thought my cousin's suitors were annoying. The guard with the plasma rifle pressed against her groans as she pulls the weapon away. Hey, so long as I don't touch, looking won't hurt, will it? Oh, sweet primals. Slytherin notes wryly, and Rain giggles as she lets herself fade out of sight. So what are you? You're not familiar species-wise. Very shy. As a species, Rain answers. But we know better than to make enemies of star empires or military polities. That doesn't answer much, Slytherin notes. And yet it's all I'm absolutely sure I can tell you, Rain answers. How about a name? You probably have mine already. True, you can call me Rain, she answers. Things are working perfectly for her. She can get reactions like this and keep everything at bay. No wonder that lunatic Harold acts this way. Get what you want done, and get them to underestimate you while you do it. It's nearly perfect. So why were you giggling so hard earlier? Is using that death machine that much fun? It was the thought of having a whole fleet of them. It's a human thing as far as I can tell, the Guard Sergeant Megara says. Those boys really love their toys and they've passed that wholeheartedly on to Lord Slytherin. He's rarely happier than when he's piloting or building some new impossible death machine. Are you saying that you would say no to a chance to control this monster yourself? Slytherin asks with a tilt of his head, even as he has his main drone jolt to the side as the chamber starts to grow completely silent. The last laser falls and he casually calibrates the shield to repel plasma. No, I am not saying that, Megara replies. Ha! Well, you're honest guardswoman. Tell me, oh Lord, how many more shots of rail can that monster you made take? I've tested it up to 5 direct hits in the same area. Beyond that, and the impacts to start breaking internal components. Slytherin states and Rain lets out a low whistle of appreciation. That's insanely good. How did you get it to that level? It's the same kind of armor used in power armor, but behind it are numerous potent inertial dampeners, meaning that with the plates thin, they can be sacrificed as kinetic ablative armor. And you went 5 deep with them? It's as much as I could get on without making it too bulky, heavy, or causing too much drag. I want this monster fast too. After all, the best defense is simply not being hit. I thought it was never being attacked. Not a lot of difference there. But not being attacked is better, Slytherin concedes. Still, I've lost 2 layers of chest plating. That's a problem. I'll need to be more careful. So if there are any more surprises in the room, I'd like to know now. Just me keeping watch on our guest, Tang remarks. Okay, that's all right then. Slytherin notes as Rain looks around the room in shock. Check the infrared, girly. Your trick is thorough, but you only erase the heat on yourself, which disrupts everything going on and leaves a trail when you move. But the weapon you've got on is a pea shooter, and you've made not hostile movements. So you're welcome here, if a little rude. I need to work on splitting my focus. I can sense that now, but damn, something to work on. Slytherin notes as he rubs around the sensory pits surrounding his neck and collarbone. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 322. The Bounty Hunters. A pro-TN says there's a copy of her brain in that thing, Tang says, his position still hidden, but clearly watching the screen as Slytherin's drone enters a massive cavern with 2 pairs of stalactites and stalagmites, each holding up a massive mechanical sphere that shifts like a gigantic metallic eye. I'll take it. My money is that there's some kind of bio-horror in that thing that controls the drones and is about to go insane. Slytherin states just before the entire sphere expands and breaks apart to reveal a massive eye and mouth as it roars in fury. Ha! Damn it, kill it, kid, Tang remarks. I'm a killin'. That's a quote from somewhere, Tang says. Sorta, there was a cartoon that Dad was showing Little George and Dee. What kid's movie has someone go, I'm a killin'? I may have mangled it a little. Slytherin admits as the creature finishes screaming at him, and he jolts his drone upwards and then releases a few cutting drones to the bottom of the cavern, which is suddenly bathed in plasma and melts them. Damn, looks like this one is ready for some action. The thing roars and Slytherin shoots a blast of vehicle-scale plasma death right into its burning mouth. It spits it back out burning green and in a stream as Slytherin has his drone scoot to the side. Well, that's a thing, Tang notes. Need me to get to the position of that thing and shoot it in the back of the head. I think I got it, but the coordinates are there. So if I can't pop it, you can, Slytherin says as the giant maw creature stops breathing fire. All right, kid, show me your mojo. This isn't adding up. I've researched Vasudasmart's previous monsters. This is a little too direct, Megara notes. She's also been operating her COBE software and human hardware. Our brains are literally wired differently. That may be the source of it. Tang notes. That confuses me. How is that even possible? The human brain was slowly developed, piece by piece over millions of years. The further you go back from the front of the face, and the more primitive it is. Without axiom to help you have to do things slow so you can find parts of our brain that look like the whole brain of animals, then go back again and find the whole brain of a smaller animal. I think the brain stem is the same structure for the whole brain of a worm or something, Tang explains. So you think this might be it? Well, the fact that there's a specific space for every brain function might have jolted her around a bit and take a while to find her balance. That might have been created during the adjustment period. Tang considers before one of the panels protecting the maw shoots out and slams the wall next to where Slytherin's dodge had taken his drone. That was only just subsonic. Slytherin hits the accelerator to dodge the next dozen or so variants of the slamming, more and more panels, and Slytherin's answer is to release a drone to see if he can't shear away its plating. The maw screams as it twists around, and Slytherin recalls the mini drone to the murder drone and gets back to dodging. It starts spitting fire again. A pattern maybe? Slytherin asks. I don't think it's going to act like a video game character. Tang notes. Maybe. Slytherin notes as he slowly calculates the shot as the thing tries to hit his drone with the fire. Then there's a loud blast as a coil gun integrated into the drone blasts out and pierces the eye of the monster. It explodes into gore, and the thing contracts into its shell entirely while screaming in agony. The ceiling, floor, and walls bathe in plasma, and the outer shell starts to shift around as it tries to keep the weak spot well away from the drone. Then the outer armor starts to be sheathed in visible electricity, and it lets out a massive pulse of power that slows the drone. Did it just EMP me? Slytherin demands. The bastard. Didn't you harden that thing? Lethier asks. The main drone, but the smaller drones are vulnerable and will be down for a bit. Slytherin answers as he jolts it to the side to dodge a tendril, slamming a bit of electricity-sheathed armor. And he reveals that the plasma cannon the main body is carrying has an underslung hull cutter that he uses to chop at the tendril off. Not that it's going to help. How many weapons do you have in that thing? More than I can comfortably carry, Slytherin answers, and Rain makes a point of being seen looking down his tail before giving him a questioning look. Yes, even with the larger-than-standard tail thanks to the jungle Nagasha heritage of my mother. It's because he doesn't really like the feel of expanded space too close to him, Yitta says cheekily. It's just something about the way the axiom flows. I can slither into an expanded space, no problem. Reach into one, but it just bothers me if I have too many of them close by for too long. I can't fully relax and it gets tiring. Slytherin admits. Besides, there's just something fun and cheeky about having others do my shooting, but not really. It feels like I'm ordering some violence on the communicator like a meal. You know you can have a little bit of fun with that. Put stickers or a paint job on it that has your face or something for branding, Rain offers. I know, right? We've been trying to talk him into it, Tang says in a cheer tone as Slytherin groans in disgust. The groan prompting a hearty laugh from Tang as Slytherin manages to claim another chunk of armor before going back to dodging while his hardened drone gets hit with EMP after EMP to no avail. He's found its main weakness in that it only has so many answers. And since his drone is able to get around all of them, well, there's nothing it can do. It's only a matter of time before he kills the abomination. All teams report in. The last registered slime creature is... Hafid begins to state, and there is an absolutely unholy scream nearby. A sudden wind kicks off, and his scanners show that not only is the mustard gas being pulled, but the acid as well. He looks upwards as an enormous face begins to phase into existence, breathing in and drinking the poison and acid produced in the city in a single massive inhale. Hafid jumps onto a building and takes aim at the different sources of mustard gas before firing, killing monster after monster and quickly cutting off the supply of deadly gas. The face looks down at him in a fury before suddenly spitting out a spear that crashes into his armor before he can dodge and slams him down through the building and crushing what's inside. Armor integrity at 92%. His suit's system sings out. He walks through the walls of the building and looks up again, is spotted by the creature again, and once more it spits something at him. This time he dodges and the ground next to him craters entirely with wisps of the deadly gas and acid fumes rising from it. It's spitting hardened poison and acid balls at supersonic speeds. It's like it's trying to fire plasma without the heat. He sidesteps another attack and fires several shots at it with the integrated plasma weapons, but the face is completely unbothered by it. Because why wouldn't it be? Then it opens its mouth wide and a burning light starts glowing. "Everyone out of the city, now!" he orders before blasting away as fast as possible from the insanely powerful plasma lance chasing after him. It only lasts a few moments and leaves the face panting, but from the view he gets when he fires a tiny observation drone over the devastation, Hafid can see deep down to where molten stone churns. And more fumes are coming up because the damn thing went right through bedrock and all the way into the burning heart of the world. He fires off a few more plasma blasts and activates both a burn and pulse laser. All this does is trace light across the terrible face. Its mouth begins to glow again, and Hafid makes a decision before leaping into the pit that the creature had carved into the world. It pauses in confusion as he descends lower and lower, and then activates the axiom totems in his armor, and he grabs onto the wall to stop himself from diving into the magma wholesale. He then starts using the axiom to gather up a great deal of magma and make sure he gets a good and thunk clump of enormous size. He then rockets upwards and drags the massive magma orb behind him. He throws it directly into the face and then uses his axiom knowledge to flash freeze the lava and forming it into igneous stone. A combination of pumice, obsidian, and granite harden against the face and in the mouth as it tries to thash, but is blinded, deafened, and in enough pain to entirely fail to focus. Hafid's next attack is with hard light projections around the right fist of his armor to form a massive sword. It's for hunting rabid or enraged megafauna. The hard light blade pierces the stone with ease. The flesh doesn't slow down and there isn't even a hint of bones as the blade pierces brain matter and the face lets out a scream in absolute agony before Hafid twists the blade and it goes silent. Then the entire cavern shifts as the face is revealed to have innumerable tendrils grasping around the cavern as it can no longer keep itself invisible and intangible. Hafid himself phases through the corpse as it falls and he lets himself fall after it to land on the back of the face's face with a squish as the sheer weight of his armor forces out more blood, brain matter, and supporting fluids to the boneless, tentacled horror. He takes a minute to stop the corpse from falling into the pit it had carved out and then reopens his communication line. "Is everyone all right? No one trapped beneath the beast?" "No. Sir, we have safely evacuated the guest staters and we're out of the city during the fight." "Good, because I'm going to need some assistance to properly dispose of this corpse." The wretch filled itself to bloating with mustard gas and acid fumes. "I don't want it leaking into the world." When the maw had its armor half shredded away, but it's responding well and has Aldihu's armor plating facing him, readjusting too fast for Slytherin to take a proper shot between them as it rearranges itself, and his current plan is to zip around the creature and leaving several drones floating behind to approach from behind and slightly below. He also raises up his standard drone while peppering the maw with numerous plasma blasts, and it gives his drone its undivided attention. This allows his smaller drones to approach from the creature's blind spot and prepare themselves with the hull cutters. Then all at once they start cutting into the horror and it screams before letting out an EMP, and then the larger drone charges at full speed directly into its screaming mouth and then accelerating even harder. The flesh of the creature proves rubbery and takes a few moments to tear, and Slytherin just barely stops the drone from slamming into the far wall. He turns it around and sees the wilted and broken thing droops to the ground as the spires deactivate. "Well, that was a thing," Tang notes. "Do you think a det pack on top of it would have done something similar? If you got it under the armor?" "Probably," Slytherin notes before having his drone scan the room. "I'm not seeing any other entrances than the one my drone came in by, which means that thing was probably in control of some kind of portal network or something of the like. Or the whole thing is a trap. Paranoid types tend to like those." Tang notes. "Paranoid her? She's only died multiple times already and was subtly undermining and besieging an entire world. What would she have to be paranoid about?" Slytherin asks. "Well, when you put it that way, I'd have to say, Everything. Yeah, everything about sums it up. But we won't know until we can figure out what these columns are. Because that freaky thing was way too violent to be the sole thing controlling portals. To say nothing of it using portals intelligently. So the coordinates and programming for those portals is, Slytherin says as he brings his drone to a spire to scan it closely, is not in this specific spire. Damn. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 323, The Bounty Hunters. So all the lower spires are big axiom collectors and channelers, directly into the creature. Slytherin notes. It does explain how it was fed. It probably didn't even have a stomach. That thing's mouth opened way too wide. Rain notes. Unless the mouth was also the stomach. We have no way of knowing. Imagine if it was a prototype of some kind of aerial suppression force. Tang remarks as he finally steps out of the nothing he was hiding in and sits beside Rain. His seating is casual, but with his arms on his legs, it means he has his hand only inches away from the combat knife strapped around his calf. How you doing, kiddo? That makes too much sense, Slytherin says, having not heard Tang's subtle threat to Rain. Hey, keep calm. I haven't hurt anyone, Rain says. You're right. No one's hurt. Let's keep it that way. Tang agrees. Slytherin gives them a look as he catches on to the mood despite his focus on the drone. Just keeping things friendly, little buddy. I'm sure, Slytherin says as he raises his drone up high and begins scanning the spires that descend from the ceiling. Here we go. There's a set of coordinates in these things, each one incomplete by themselves, but together they can do this. He activates an axiom engine hidden in the base platform and causes the coordinates to activate in sequence. Nothing. He adjusts the sequence, switching around which part is first and which is last a few more times until a direct portal opens up in front of the drone. Beyond it is what looks like a cargo bay that Slytherin flies his drone into with only a moment to scan things ahead of time. Looks like you found her stockpile, Tang notes as Slytherin gives them all good view of the rows upon rows of nutrient supplements, chemicals, and numerous drones at rest. Although I'm surprised something isn't already shooting at your drone. I know, right? This is so weird. It was a monster fight just to get the coordinates to get here. Even if it's disguised as a nice and legal warehouse, it's still oddly unprotected, Tang notes. No. Turrets, no alarms, no nothing, Slytherin says before activating a few sequences. And the cargo bay is well and truly on another part of the planet. One of the inhabited cities, no less. That's the problem with portal tech. The meticulous and clever can decentralize their organizations and make them near impossible to root out, Tang notes. Makes for some wild chases through buildings that seem to lead everywhere. Primals above those mission recordings are confusing to watch, Slytherin says. They're worse running. The gravity can fluctuate in the weirdest way, and not rarely 90 degrees at a time. I suppose that if you have two small points of balance, that level ground turning into a steep slope would be an issue. You may laugh, but flyers and the multi-legged have us all beat, Tang remarks. It's true. Gravity is our plaything, Corporal Jitta says. My drone's a little too everything for a cargo warehouse or whatever building this is in. So I'm dropping a tracking beacon and triggering the recall on my monster, Slytherin remarks as he rolls his shoulders and then neck. And that means my part is over and done. And well done it is. You tracked the enemy supplies right to their source, disabled countless security protocols, and felled one of their dangerous creations. All with minimal damage to your equipment and no risk to yourself or anyone else. Minimal my tail. The armor on my drone is a bitch to replace. Each layer is exacting, and I still haven't set up a proper machining sequence for it, Slytherin says as he suddenly starts stretching out his tail in a long circle, before slowly and carefully bringing it around to stretch it the other way. There is a very large amount of pops, and he lets out a sigh. Focused so hard for parts I cramped a bit. Damn. Rebecca's smile falls at the serious look of the human man after leaving her interview with Observer Wu. The man was an amazing listener and had been outright taking notes as she explained everything in exhaustive detail, from the little considerations that were to be let slide to the annoyances that kept coming up due to old bits of legality preventing new advances from going faster and more conveniently. But now there was a grim-looking human in front of her. "Oh no! What's wrong and why is it my problem? A series of creations of Vazudi's Mart are functionally harmless and require legal recognition," he says. "What?" Part of Vasud's latest scheme includes a series of bioengineered gestators. They have the mental level of small children, have spent their entire lives pregnant, and losing the children they've been giving birth to. All of them so far are coming up clean of pathogens, programming, and mind control effects. What? Visuda Simshti III's crime spree includes child abuse, child exploitation, and mass rape by forcing these gestators to give birth over and over and over again, he says, and her blood runs cold. What were they giving birth to? Specially designed monsters that mass-produce poison. They were the reason why the cleanup after the mustard gas use was taking so damn long, the man says, and she sighs. Of course. Have you found all of them? We've worked with the conservation efforts and cleaned out a city worth. What? A literal underground city, based in a massive cavern, the Undaunted man says, and she groans. Does it have a name? I suspect it's going to be decommissioned, the man says, and she gestures for him to keep going. There's a massive gouge in the middle of it that goes down to the molten core of the world. Yeah, dump stone into that place until it's good and sealed up, Rebecca says. And the city itself? Heavily poisoned with the exception of the buildings where the gestators were being held captive and giving birth. Were they protesting? They don't even have the capacity for language. They're a few months old at most and were born with adult bodies and kept pregnant in perpetuity. Babies giving birth? She asks in a horrified tone. Yes. And here I thought my opinion of the raging bitch couldn't get any lower, Rebecca mutters. And it'd be a finger in her eye to turn part of her weapon-producing chain into law-abiding and beloved citizens, the man notes. It would, wouldn't it? Rebecca says thoughtfully. What do they look like? Overly endowed trets with bodies that can stretch and distort without pain or discomfort, the man says. From my understanding of human standards, the average body shape of the galaxy is overly endowed. Is it by your standards or ours? Your standards, he says, and brings up a picture. It's censored but shows a very pale woman with stretching and distorting limbs walking with, how is that poor woman even upright? I suspect a great deal of genetic manipulation and sheer axiom nonsense. That's near adept level nonsense, and this one doesn't look pregnant. That's a picture of one that came fresh out of a cloning tube and hadn't been mass impregnated yet. Apparently part of the fourth batch. He says, how many? We don't know. We're not sure if the ones we have now are even complete. We've gotten her files but are still sorting through it all. Damn. Still, if you can promise me that they're not baby-eating psychopaths, carrying bombs, or infected with some kind of super plague, then I'll see about getting them legal IDs. Do you have ideas for the names? We've been referring to them as the Marys. Why? Human religious reference. A virgin mother with a divine child who was the blood and incarnation of the benign creator. It can get kinda heady and complicated, so for a family name, Mary will do. The Mary family? Fine. I'll draw up the files and forms. It'll have to be a standardized document since we don't know how many there are at this time, she says before grinning. You know, if we get enough, we might be able to get out of this Visude event with a higher population rather than a smaller one. Provided they're as harmless as you say, we'll be handling any dangerous ones, and thank you for this. A lot of people won't like the idea of one of her creations wandering the street. True, which is why we're going to emphasize that they're her victims too. That Vasude is such a piece of shit she created children just to have more people to torment, he says, and Rebecca pauses as she processes that. Yes, that adds up, she says. It's still mind-blowing that something so vile can even be. Well, from my understanding, she started by trying to forcibly improve the Koibi species and even made some progress. She just doesn't have any moral limits on what she does and proceeded to commit all sorts of atrocities with it, he says. Progress? Her successes were a group of 10 Kobe children, law-abiding, reasonable, intelligent, and immensely competent in 10 unique fields. No moral or intellectual deficiencies, 10 little girls, not even old enough to wonder what the bumps on people are for, and each one of them with a master's degree in a different field each. That's incredible. Her other great success was what she did to her original. She wanted to create a primal Kobe and created a Kobe whose every piece of anatomy is an axiom totem. Even though he himself is weaker than a primal with raw axiom use, he's on the same field, which is an absurd amount of power. If only she stopped there. It seems like she can't stop, pulcologically. Don't tell me you pity her. Of course not, but there is, or rather was a method to her madness. The latest discoveries are a lot more aggressive, and we haven't found any attempts to improve any species, with one potential exception. Whom? A kidnapped gobe, or rather a flawlessly cloned gobe, with a perfect memory to her original. Out of all this madness, we have found a perfect clone. Was this clone being used for something? We think so. A combination of immensely powerful axiom weapon and a protective shield. We didn't study it too closely before pulping it and finding the clone. And where's the clone? She checked out clean and was introduced to the original. Apparently, they were from a family prone to twins or identical cousins, and she was one of the few that was truly unique. They have decided to share her name, and they are now beloved sisters. Okay then, I know, it's both the most benevolent and most bizarre outcome in all this madness. Yes, there is another bit of benevolence that is coming out of this, he says. And what is that? A large family reunion and relief effort is on its way. You know the conservation effort? It's led by a single member of the family with his mother basically as his HR and PR departments at the same time. The rest are coming, including his father and siblings. Okay? Does the name Warren Wayne mean anything to you? Ooh, it's familiar, she says. Well, the Wayne family is on the way, and Hafid with his conservation efforts is just one branch of it, the man explains. I see. So more aid beyond our own efforts, and the Undaunted are on their way. Yes, you're not abandoned and not alone. The entire chamber is covered in a dark purple substance, with only a camera drone on the inside showing what's going on. It hovers well away from both the ground and the enormous pale corpse in the middle of it. Outside the chamber, Hafid nods towards Terry, who then makes a clenching motion with his right hand, and the walls of the chamber suddenly spike, and the enormous corpse is suddenly impaled. It lets out an obscene amount of deadly gas that is instantly drunken down by the surrounding astral forest matter. Should I leave the meat behind? Terry asks. Yes, I think you should, but we need to make sure the poisons and acids are cleaned away first, Hafid states. The whole thing is tainted up and down with the stuff, Terry says. Yes, however, we need to better understand just what kind of thing that is. A monster? An abomination? A horror? Yes to all of them. However, vague descriptions are not sufficient. We need to know more. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 324. The Bounty Hunters. Hello, the Olivias state at the same time, and Harold chuckles. Greeting, Olivias. I'm glad you're both willing to talk to me, Harold says. Now all this is going to be on the record, and I'm Operative Harold Jameson of the Undaunted. I work with the Intelligence Division, which means that the main thing I'm after is information, information, and information. What is your name for the record? I'm Olivia Overdrive. We're a clone and original flavor gob, and you forgot to say your proper species name. They accuse Harold. Human asterisk. I'm a clone myself with my original Herbert Jameson, being a higher rank in intelligence. But he's more a desk guy, and I'm a field agent, so I get to go out and do the fun stuff. But I have been recently modified due to some very strange events that are not relevant to this interview. But I am human, Harold insists. Oh, so can you see more or less with those weird eyes? More, but I don't think I have the right kind of brain to process what I'm seeing. So there's more contrast, for lack of a better term, to things. It makes seeing in the dark a little easier and better details at a distance. But, he shrugs. Anyways, enough about me. I'm here about you. Or rather, you two. So, back on track for the record. What do you do for a living? We're an axiom adept. We specialize in wide-scale detection and pulling apart dangerous axiom effects from a safe distance. The trick is to find where the pattern resonates the most and put in a counter resonation at the exact right time. Like two waves of equal size but opposite directions slamming into each other. Wham! Calm water, Harold says. Exactly. And if you keep doing that, then the whole waveform collapses in a hurry with a minimum of energetic side effects, the Olivias explain. Very interesting. And at what point does the divergence occur? Or rather, when does the original end and the clone begin? We found a strange effect going on with some sort of leftover totem keeping some of Pseudosmirt's effects alive. We brought it down, but there was a backlash that knocked us back hard. We broke our wrist bracing the impact and went to the hospital. There was a really small healing coma. 20 minutes. Then poof, there's now two of us. V. Pseudosmart must have stolen the retention ban. But it's strange. There was no report of that happening. Someone would have reported that. Harold raises an eyebrow as both Olivias glance at each other and then smile at him. They had spoken differently, but her voice carries in such a way that Heck can easily make them out. Okay, so for the sake of whoever watches this recording may be having a bad day, one of you said there was no report of the retention ban being stolen, and the other stating that if the ban was stolen, it would have been reported. Right? Harold asks. Yes, the Olivias reply. Good, Harold says. So, when you two were released, there was something you seemed to have noticed. Was there an axiom effect going on? Did you two figure out why a clone of you was needed? You also mentioned a strange dream, Miss Clone. We figured it out. Great. What is the answer to our mystery? There were several big effects. The biggest on the outside was one that covered up the rest, making the axiom seeming to run still and calm, despite the things they were doing. The Olivias explain. That's what the big brain was for. It was all based off the idea of a human brain having specialized parts, and it was giving me strange dreams as it had me cast numerous concealing effects into my own blind spot. Are you aware of your own blind spot? I am now, they say. It was that we thought that a certain kind of axiom movement meant everything was always well, and it would slip our mind that a proper axiom field has all sorts of things drawing from it and distorting it all over the place. Even in places without life, it has little eddies and flows. So the areas affected by the field were too uniform in their flow? No, they were too regular in their flows. Nature is more chaotic. They answer as one. Right. And the other effects? Ones that prevented panic and got people to stop paying attention? The sort of thing that's used in some prisons to prevent riots. A lot of criminals use them too in order to get it, so that police officers and the like don't get too excited about things. It's why it's restricted in many systems, including this one. You need a license for a wide-scale pacifying aura. More populated worlds have them outright illegal. Centris is one such place. Why is that? Because the fields can be hard to properly contain as they like to spread, and if it gets into the public, then it's a serious violation of rights. And the places where they are legal, you still have to opt in, meaning the prison guards get paid more. But the lack of riots means that it's still coming up as better for the prison's budget. The Olivias state, and Harold nods. So, what else was there beyond these calming fields and the cover for it? Detection. I was being used to send some kind of signal and receive it too. It was so weird. I was asleep, but halfway lucid dreaming. I knew I was dreaming, but wasn't in control. It was all a bunch of games and time meant nothing, the Olivias explained before lifting their hands, and between the two of them, an orb folds out into the air to show numerous distorted images. Trees are growing sideways and the leaves falling upwards, a river dancing in spirals, as a pair of spaceships in fancy dresses appeared to be trying to bake something and produce a fully grown felly woman bawling like a baby. A small cart has a massive plume of fire shooting out of its exhaust as it rockets across the sky while towing the sun. But the fire is turning into multicolored drinks that falls down to rain on the funeral for a rock. The view shows a pair of green arms swaying as the viewpoint character dances in the madness. Well, that's a thing, Harold notes. It is. Is it any wonder why we didn't think anything was real? Maybe. If we start dipping into symbolism, we might be able to dig this out. Dragging the sun and leaving a multicolored rain behind it would show wide-reaching effects altering the world and touching the earth, which has entities grieving buried stone, and a lot was hidden underground. Machines giving birth to fully developed women, waters flowing unnaturally and nature twisted on its axis. All of the craziness can correlate to what was going on, Harold says and then shrugs. But dream interpretation is always a long shot even for professionals, which I'm not. So I could just be looking for patterns where there aren't any. Sometimes the drapes are just blue, and sometimes you just like rainbows and dancing, the Olivias exclaim. Exactly that. Is there anything you two would like to tell me? We have questions, they say. Ask, he says. How are things between you and the original? Great, but I have his memories and want to be my own person. It hurt a bit to be near him at first. He has many beautiful children, and I'm the uncle, not the father. So, oh, that's sad. It's all right. I'm mostly over it and on good terms with Herbert. He even sorted out my paperwork so my ID is nice and legal. Plus, I get to bounce around the galaxy in ways he can't. He's too important where he is to get more than the occasional vacation. I get to wander, Harold says. For instance, he's wanted to come see Albrecht, but I'm the one who's here. So, the Olivias giggle at that. So why am I using only one weapon? Dart asks as he sights down the pistol. His upper arms are holding onto the weapon, but his lower ones are just bracing him. Because you only have one pair of eyes and don't have the training to hip shoot with anything resembling accuracy. Not to mention this is a new weapon type for you. We're taking this nice and slow so you don't hurt someone you don't want to, his trainer says. Yeah, but there's all kinds of equipment to compensate for things. And all equipment can be taken away, be damaged or malfunction. But solid training is considerably harder to get rid of, his trainer says. Now align the iron sights and do not pull the trigger, squeeze it. The gun firing should be a surprise. Isn't it a bad thing for a weapon to surprise you when you use it? For someone trained with a weapon, yes, that is a very bad thing. For training with a weapon. No, it's to be expected. You're learning about this tool. If you already know everything about it, then any surprises are a display of ignorance or stupidity. Why do you keep calling it a tool? Because in the end, a weapon is a tool of death, and people tend to fear the term weapon on some level. But being afraid of a weapon is foolish. Weapons have no wills of their own. You do not fear a hammer, you do not fear a screwdriver or a wrench, but many will fear a gun or a knife. But like the hammer, screwdriver, and wrench, the gun and the knife are harmless without someone else using them. You are holding an inanimate object with no will of its own. The only thing you need fear is its misuse, which in your case comes in several parts. Right, the worst thing I can do is point this weapon tool. The worst I can do is point this tool at anything I don't intend to kill or break. And after that, damaging it through misuse or neglect, where it can unintentionally hurt me or another when otherwise used properly. And finally, losing it to a hostile or ignorant party that will hurt others with this tool? Correct. Weapons are tools. They leverage your will upon the world with more power than normal to allow you to accomplish more with your talents. But like the tools of a shipbuilder, they must be respected, and misusing them can cause enormous harm or the loss of life. Have you looked up my history, Dart asks? I have. That's why I use the example of a shipbuilder. I know what happened to your aunt. I was visiting when it happened. I know. The accident happened because someone else used her tools and did not care for them properly. It's the same with the tool in your hand. If misused or ill-maintained, it is dangerous. Now take the shot. That's not assuring me that this is safe to do, Dart remarks. You're using a weapon, of course it's not safe, but you respect it now. So it just became a lot safer. By making me feel unsafe. Ironic. A lot of things in life are, his trainer admits. But this is simple cause and effect. You feel unsafe, so you will be careful. You're being careful and therefore are safer. It's a simple cycle. Well, I suppose I'm about to find out if I'm safe enough, Dart says as he sights down the pistol with an eye closed. Both eyes open, you have depth perception for a reason. His trainer chides him. Dart keeps his eyes open and stares, then gently squeezes the trigger. Bang! He nearly jumps out of his socks with a sudden blast of power from the tiny weapon and manages to stop himself from doing anything foolish as he gets his heart rate under control. That had been loud. Grazed their left shoulder. Not bad. Some people miss the target entirely on their first try. His trainer says, do it again. Get used to the kick of the pistol and get comfortable with it. I've got several cases of ammunition and a spare pistol. I want you to use all of it today. Spare pistol? Is it going to wear down that much? No, but we're also going to be field stripping, cleaning, and maintaining the pistols. I'll be showing you how. His trainer says before grinning, also, if you impress me, we'll see how well you can use 2 pistols at once. I have 4 hands, and these seem to be one-handed weapons. Yes and yes, but baby steps. If you want to be a 4-gun toting murder machine, you need to show me you can handle one first. Now show me. The next shot is a gut shot on the target, but that's entirely luck at the moment. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 325. The Bounty Hunters. Come in, they say at the same time, and the door to their joint workshop opens. Jade is helping Slytherin lever on another layer of thin but incredibly resilient ablative plating onto his wardrobe. Am I interrupting something? Observer Wu asks. Not really, it's just that this is the sort of thing best done before you forget it, you know, Slytherin asks. And he just doesn't get the full details of ablative plate. The balance between it being strong enough to absorb multiple attacks and being designed to break and absorb impacts to spare what's under it isn't something he can walk at the moment. Well, considering that I slither, it might never happen. Slytherin says as he squeezes the final layer onto the torso, with his coils providing all the force, and Jade clips it into position. There we go. So what are you here for, Mr. Observer Man? Is it going to take long? Because Scales here has promised to help me up the power intake of my armor's mounted cannons. More nicknames? Observer Wu asks. I won't rest until he's been called everything in every language, Jade says with a smile, and Slytherin is shaking his head and looking up as if searching for guidance. Anyways, you're clearly here to talk to either him or me. How long will that take? If we're being indulgent, it's maybe a half hour each. Both of us? Jade asks. Of course, I still want to hear about Fleetborn life from Slytherin, and I'd like to hear from you about your own life. And from my understanding, you've suffered under effectively forced amnesia. An improper healing coma, it heals everything, including the memories in the brain. But things that are really down pat are usually kept. Not always, but I did get lucky, Jade admits. And do you recall how you ended up in such a situation? Observer Wu asks. If I ever did know it's been blasted away by hundreds of healing comas without a ban, I was used as an organ farm for goddess know how long. Kept in a coma, my organs extracted, put on life support, rejuvenated, and the repeat. As for my memories, didn't you describe it like deep water once? Slytherin asks. Yeah, like really deep water at night. You throw a net into it and pull it back to see if you've gotten something. Normally you don't, but sometimes you do, Jade explains. Here, let me show you something. She heads to her side of the room and picks up the Canador helmet on her work table. Look at this. I've made several modifications by reflex, old-style modifications, ones that are used by women in the field and are so tough that the helmet can be completely destroyed, and if the pieces that the modifications are part of are still intact, then they still work. Insane resilience. Rarely used, though, the readings they give are cruder and less precise than more modern ones. How out of date are they? Observer Wu asks as he is handed the enormous helmet and he turns it over to both see the internals himself and to ensure that the camera he's wearing sees it as well. Up hit of date it may be, it still looks bleeding edge to his unpracticed eye. Centuries. But there's no way of knowing if I was just someone who favored old reliable tech or someone who used them when they were new. That strikes me as rather odd, with the extended lifespans of the galaxy at large. Wouldn't there be a call for longer-lasting and more robust technologies? Generally, yes, but the way most peoples do that is with self-repair or preservation runes on equipment. Actually, building things to be more robust by themselves isn't as common, But that's where I'm not sure about myself, because tougher tech has a lot to recommend to it. But again, is it because I used to like the idea of tougher toys, or because it was what I used because everyone used it? Jade asks. Very good questions, Observer Wu states before handing it back to her. Does it bother you that you don't have the answers? A little, Jade says as she takes it back. But I don't know. There are questions beyond who I am and where I come from. Like, will I stop being me if I figure that out? What if I don't like the answers I get? Is someone looking for me? Have I left someone behind? Every question I raise that makes me want to look brings up another that makes me not want to. I'm sorry to hear that you're so conflicted about things. I'm not sure what advice I can offer, though. This is a bit beyond my expertise, Observer Wu says, and she shrugs. Beyond just about anyone, really. Healing comas are a complete crapshoot when they're messed up one time, let alone the endless amounts of times it happened to me. I got lucky I knew how to walk and talk when I came out the other end. But it doesn't mean anything. I am who I am. I see. One more question before I start asking Slytherin a few things. Oh? What's it like to be adopted by a human and a member of your own species? Do you prefer Onyx or Pilot Bravo? And if you do prefer one over the other, is it because of species? That was more than one question, Jade notes. One more cluster of questions then, Observer Wu says. Well, when I first saw that I was being adopted by Dad, I did try to push him around a bit. I'm bigger. I should be stronger. But he's very strong, very skilled and tougher than me. So sure, Dad's short. But that's it, she says. So no favorites? I go to Mom when I want to learn about being a Canador and feel cushy and comfy. I go to Dad to have fun and learn all the ways I can break the speed limit. He's trying to get an air cycle that can approach FTL while in atmosphere. The problem is that he's worried he might split the atom and leave a wake of nuclear death behind him. I clearly need to speak with Rico Bravo and remind him that if he ever returns to Mexico, he's going straight to jail. Wait, that wasn't just bragging. Air farce is illegal in his own country? It was one of the oddest military citations I ever saw. He piloted a supersonic jet through a city at maximum burn, maneuvered around buildings, and not only avoided causing any property damage, but didn't damage the vehicle. He got let off on a technicality because no one who was there could believe the footage of his actions wasn't doctored. I need to pay more attention to that man. I thought he was like 9 parts in 10 hot air, but the last part was good enough to make up for the air. Slytherin notes and Jade chuckles. Really? He saved you from the giant amalgam monster, and you still thought he was mostly hot air? Jade asks in an incredulous tone. Well, no. It's just he doesn't act like you think someone that good acts. Slytherin states. You know what? Forget it. I was running off at the mouth. I know he's the best pilot I've ever met. I just didn't know his stories were that true. That's better, Jade notes. Yep, no lack of love for her father. Observer Wu notes, and Jade sticks her tongue out at him. And we are officially in system, Nightwing says with a grin. See, I told you, smooth flying and a full 6 hours off our trip. Good, Brutality notes. And you doubted me? Nightwing states. I never said that. Brutality replies. More implied it. Nightwing's counters. I did not. Brutality says simply, hey, we're being hailed by a warship nearby. A mean one, Undaunted IFF. Drax states, and Nightwings checks things again. Yep, hang on, time for a talkie talk, Nightwings notes. Good ship acrobat, this is Captain Chasm of the Holt. State your business, please. The Turl in formal uniform states, his sacred Turl pearls gleam in the ship light. Family visitation. A lost member of the clan is on Albrecht in the care of his uncle. We are going to see him. Brutality states firmly. Ace looks over to him in some surprise before nodding. The Waynes? We're famous, Drac asks. Terrence has been the personal guest of a borderline infamous member of the Undaunted. Go on through. Captain Chasm states, and the call ends. Well, that's a thing. Why wouldn't he say why the man is infamous or how Terrence is doing? Nightwing's notes. He got his information from a rumor and wasn't providing what he thought might be inaccurate. Brutality states. Not sure I like the idea of my son being around someone that a military polity considers infamous, Warren says as he steps onto the bridge and cracks his back. I've conferred on everything with Mother Jinshui. The formulae works perfectly and they're already moving into mass production. Bro, you take things too seriously, Drac remarks. The Undaunted are a small but fun organization. They've got a bunch of men and women with building reputations already, including the Earthani Primal. But if there's one here that Terry Boy was in contact with, I think it's one of the new ones. Part of the Jameson Continuum, several members of their people got cloned en masse. Herbert Jameson is one, but he has a fully developed clone of adult age with a mental download. Apparently this guy has outright fought primals in one-on-one combat and is some kind of super warrior, but with the training of an intelligence operative. Fighting for the love of the fight, Drac explains as he holds up a heavily customized data slate that functions like a communicator on steroids. Oh, I just bet he's a barrel of laughs. Hopefully we've got the little guy intact. Can we please not speculate on whether my son is hurt or not? I'm nervous enough as is with him being near a biohazard zone with Hafid as his main male role model, Warren says with a groan. Ace pats him on the shoulder. He turns to look at her, and her tail starts wagging as she signs that things will be all right. Drac shrugs and stretches out his wings. The slight hint of small feathers along the otherwise leathery things hint to his Valrin mother. Hey, I just got up. Are we almost there? Maxine asks as she walks in with a yawn. Yes, Maxine. We're nearly there. Brutality answers politely and Ace sweeps her up into a hug. Hey, come on, Auntie, I just got... Hey, Maxine complains as she's tossed up, and the rush wakes her up fully. Come on, I'm not 5 years old. Ace rubs at her muzzle, then holds out her hand before lowering it down and down until it reaches Maxine's dyed hair, and she messes it up. Oh, come on, that's not fair, you're a taller species. Ace's answer is to wag her tail again and bend at the waist to nuzzle her on the top of the head, then pull back before the annoyed Tret can jump up and bop her in the nose for it. She then relinquishes her niece and walks over to an empty bridge seat. She doesn't sit in it, but leans against it and stares at the readout that shows how far they are from Albrith, with her tail wagging fast enough to blur. Yeah, it feels like he's coming back to life, Drax states, and Ace nods vigorously. Oh, this is neat. All the Jameson ID pictures have been updated. They all have blank white eyes and facial markings now. Check it out. Is there an indication of what happened? Warren asks. The date it was updated was before we got a call from Terry Boy. So was it in the middle of all of it? Perhaps. We shall have to see. Why do I get the feeling that the next 2 hours of this trip are going to feel longer than the last 60? Anticipation, Nightwing says dramatically. Ace, can you make sure your older brother is awake? Brutality asks, and her everything droops. Frame, fur, posture, tail, ears, everything. Very well. He turns and walks out of the bridge, finding his way through his son's ship and into the cargo hold. The moment he enters, he has a weapon pointed at him. Then Todd turns it away. We're nearly there, Brutality states, and his son and fellow blood Sonier merely grunts as he goes over his weapons. He wants to assure Todd that it's not his fault, but that conversation had ended in furious weapon fire before. Todd slots the priming lenses into the laser rifle and visually checks the alignment before adjusting it ever so with his nearest ear perked up and paying rapt attention. We need to be ready, Todd says after finding the weapon to his satisfaction. Attacks on men are rare. Not rare enough. We need to be ready, Todd replies as he runs the weapon through a system check and nods at what he finds. He slots it into its place and withdraws another weapon, a plasma launcher. He starts going over it.